Welcome to the Positive Growth Doctor podcast for women. I am your host, Dr. Christina Wilson. I created the Positive Growth Doctor after years of dealing with societal expectations, self-doubt, and perfectionism. I leveraged my 30 years of experience as a positive psychologist to address limiting beliefs and gain clarity through faith-based emotional wellness techniques rooted in mindset renewal and biblical truth. Subscribe to the podcast and check out the earlier episodes so you don't miss a thing. Let's get to it. Hi, welcome to the Positive Growth Doctor podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Christina Wilson. We are in the final episode of our series, Taking Root and Trading the Striving for God's Sovereign Rest. Now, we all experience fear. We all have in the past and we will in the future. It's a part of the human condition. So whether it shows up as dread of failure or a pattern of people-pleasing, it is one of the most common roadblocks that we face. But to walk in our true, unburdened purpose, you have to face those fears and courageously step out of the boat. So in this final episode of our series, we are taking our renewed mindset, our true identity, and our unconditional worth and putting them into action. We're going to dismantle the fear so we can step boldly into the unique calling that God has for us. If you've been paralyzed by the fear of failure or just waiting until you are perfectly ready to make your next move, this episode is for you to give you the holy confidence to step out into the deep. So you can find the full transcript for this episode in your favorite podcast app, or you can go directly to the Positive Growth Doctor YouTube channel. Okay, so overcoming that fear of failure in your Christian calling. That's what we're talking about today. So when God calls you into his plan, the promptings can be clear, or maybe not, but they often raise a lot of questions. Even when the direction seems to be obvious, God rarely hands us the exact roadmap for his mission, unfortunately. And I think that's probably because he knows that we have a lot to learn in order to get there. So there's a lot of learning opportunities. And I'm okay with that. But we all hear from God differently. Now, Moses, he encountered him through the burning bush. And the Israelites heard his voice directly on Mount Sinai amidst a roar of thunder and lightning. And today he speaks through his word and biblical truths and the stirring of the Holy Spirit within us. Now, for me, that stirring feels like an undeniable nudge in the pit of my stomach. And trust me, when it's coming from him, he will not let it go. And I've learned the hard way, and I know I've said this before, but I've learned the hard way to listen and dive deeper into that. And today, I'm finally in a place where I'm more readily able to just jump in with both feet when I get that undeniable nudge. Now, that doesn't mean that the fear completely goes away. The difference now is that I continue moving forward through the uncertainty. It's that faith. And settling for a safe, sanitized, people-pleasing life because you're too terrified of the failure or judgment to step into your unique God-given calling is still disobedience. So the enemy uses spiritual warfare and the fear of human opinions to paralyze you. So if he can keep you entirely focused on what other people think of you, you never have to focus on what was required of you and what God has asked of you. So how does the enemy use that people pleasing to paralyze you in God's purpose? Well, it's our society, it's culture. Our culture is constantly encouraging us to please people rather than God all the time. And the enemy uses that cultural pressure to steer you away from God's divine plan. So when those doubts creep in, anchor yourself into biblical truths. And here's a couple for you. The first is 2 Timothy 1:7. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but power, love, and a sound mind. And in Joshua 1:9, be strong and courageous. Do not be discouraged. Do not be afraid. So keep this in mind. Purpose is not a destination that you reach when you're finally perfect. It's a pathway that you walk in your weakness, completely powered by His strength. You cannot fulfill your God-given calling while looking sideways at everyone else's lane, right? So how do you step out of the comparison trap? Well, this week, I challenge you to do that and stepping into your divine destiny by taking part in the One Bold Step Challenge. So this challenge is to identify one action step related to your deeper calling that you've been putting off due to the fear of perfectionism and execute that action step this week. So it might be a class that you've been wanting to take, but you've been afraid to, or maybe even writing the first page of that book that you've wanted to write, or setting a hard boundary with someone, or even with yourself. Okay? So identify one and take a bold step. Now, as I always say, the best way for change to occur is to become more aware, and we do that through reflection. So I have 2 reflection questions for you this week. As you take a step into faith, sit with these 2 questions. Just let it marinate. The first one is, what step of faith has God put on your heart that you are delaying simply because you don't feel ready or qualified? And the second is, whose criticism or judgment are you prioritizing over God's command for you to move? Okay? Now, I hope this episode challenged you, and I hope that it encouraged you. So if this series has blessed you, please share it with other women to help them grow too. And you can leave a quick review on Apple Podcast, which will really extend the reach to other women. I appreciate you. And let's meet up again next week for a brand new series. I will see you then. Thanks for listening to the Positive Growth Doctor podcast. Be sure to leave a review and tell other women about the podcast. Let's support each other. Find the full transcript for this episode on your favorite podcast app and learn more at thepositivegrowthdoctor.com. And be assured, you are not alone on your journey.